Hey, how's it going? My name's Derek, and I want to welcome you to the next video in my Swift Basics series. In the first video, I gave you a brief intro to Swift. We installed Xcode and created a new playground. We're going to use that playground today to learn about data types. Along the way, we'll learn about variables and constants. We'll explore foundational data types in Swift. And then we'll tie it all together with concatenation, casting, and string interpolation. So let's dive right in. I've already gone ahead and set up this playground with some comments here. So comments in Swift are starting with 2 backslashes, and anything after that will be a comment for the entire line. Alright, so if you're following along, go ahead and delete everything in the playground except for this import UI kit here. I'll explain what imports are later in another video, but for right now, just keep in mind that that needs to be there in order for the playground to function properly. If you chose macOS instead of iOS when you created the playground, instead of UI kit, it'll say Cocoa. For what we're covering today, that's perfectly fine, and you can follow along no problem. Okay, so first up are variables and constants. They're both references to some kind of data you want stored in your app. So the difference between them is that variables are mutable, which is to say that their values can change, and constants are immutable, and their values can't change, hence the name constant. In Swift, we declare variables using the var keyword, followed by the name we want to call the variable, followed by the equal sign, and the value we want to assign to that variable. So here we created the variable called name, and we're assigning the value Derek. We can create another variable, we can call it favorite number, and give that a value of 8. Alright, so constants are assigned in the same way, except instead of using the var keyword, we use the let keyword. So let's create a constant with the let keyword called greeting, and we're going to assign this the value of welcome. Not welcome, welcome. Alright. Since variables have values that can change, let's change name and favorite number. Alright, so to reassign a value, we use the name of the variable. So in this case, we're going to change name, and we put equals, and we give it a new value. So let's say Tim. So notice we didn't use the var keyword because the var keyword is used to declare and not to assign. So here we're doing an assigning with the equal sign, and var is declaring it. So we're not redeclaring it because it's already declared. All right, so we can do the same thing with favorite number, and we can give that a value of 2. All right, so if we run this, we can see that up here, name had a value of Derek, favorite number had a value of 8, and then greeting is set to welcome, and now name is equal to Tim, and favorite number is equal to 2. Alright, so we already said that constants can't be changed, so what happens if we try to change it? Let's try changing greeting to, say, hello. Alright, so we're going to get this error message here. It says, cannot assign value greeting is a let constant. Alright, so if we click on that, Xcode is going to give us this fix here, this potential fix. It says change let to var to make it mutable. All right, so we can click on fix, and we can see here let was changed to var, and now that it's a variable, we can see that greeting becomes hello. All right, but I don't want that. I want to leave that as a let, so we're going to change that back and get rid of that. All right, so moving on to data types, I want to cover 4 basic types in Swift. 2 of which we've already seen. Those are strings and integers. We can even see that if we hold down Option on our keyboard and click on the variable name, we can see that name is a string. And if we do the same for favorite number, we can see that favorite number is an int or an integer. So Swift is a type-safe language and can infer what type you're trying to create based on the value you provide. This works in most cases, but there are some cases where you may want to declare a variable or a constant but don't yet have an initial value. We'll see this later, especially when we talk about classes and structs in another video. You can explicitly declare a type to remove any ambiguity by typing a colon after the name and specifically declaring a type. So up here in name, we type colon, and then we type string. Notice it's a capital S. Swift is a case-sensitive language, and strings as a type are a capital S, just like ints are a capital I. If we take a look here at favorite number again, we can see int is a capital I. When we want to declare a string, we tell Xcode that the value is a string by surrounding the string in double quotes, like this. Integers are whole numbers without decimal points and are declared by simply typing the number as we did for favorite number. The third data type is a double, which is a floating point number, a number with a decimal point. We can declare it just like we do with an integer by typing the numbers with a decimal point. So here I could say var double is equal to 3.14. In fact, we could change this to pi because that's pi. If we type a whole number without declaring the double type, Xcode will consider this an int unless we explicitly declare it as a double. For example, if I say var double is equal to 4, if I check the type on this, it will tell me that it's an integer. I can change this by either adding the decimal point like this, or I can explicitly tell Xcode that this is a double, and then this will change its type to double. The last data type we're going to cover today is a bool, or Boolean value, a type that represents either true or false. This is a simple yet important type which we'll use a lot in the logic of our apps. A bool is declared by typing either true or false as its value. For example, I could say var is snowing, and I can set that to be false because it's not snowing. And if I check the type on it by option clicking it, it'll tell me that it's a bool. We can combine two values of the same type using what's called concatenation. Let's say I want to combine the greeting and name into a single string. I can declare a new string called greetUser and set its value to greeting plus name. Now if I go ahead and run that, we'll see that we get welcome Tim. And it's Tim because we reassigned name to Tim up here. But if you take a look at welcome Tim, you'll notice that there's no space between welcome and Tim. We can create a space ourselves by doing some more concatenation. We can create a string that has a single space and then add another plus. So we have greeting plus space plus name. So when we run this again, we'll see that the new results of our concatenation with the space has the space in here, welcome Tim. This works for simple arithmetic too. Let's create a constant and we'll call it 10 and give it the value of 10. Then we'll create another constant called addition and we'll set that to 10 plus favorite number. And if we run that, we'll see that we get 12 because we set the value of 10 to 10 and then favorite number is equal to 2 because we reassigned it up here. We can also do subtraction, multiplication, and division. So if I say let subtraction equals 10 minus favorite number, we'll see that we get 8, 10 minus 2. Same thing with multiplication. And that's done with the asterisk. Okay, we get 20 because 10 times 2 is 20. And lastly, we'll do a division. 10 and then backslash favorite number. And 10 divided by 2 will give us a value of 5. Now what if we did this in reverse, this division? So let's do favorite number and divide that by 10. So this is 2 divided by 10, which should be 0.2. But because we're using integers, the value is 0. Because we are combining two integers together, so the result is an integer. So what would happen now if we created a new constant called 10 double and explicitly made it a double with a value of 10 and change this to double 10 or 10 double? Okay, now this gives us an error right away. This says binary operator / cannot be applied to operands of type int and double. So this is a long-winded way of saying that Swift doesn't want you to combine these two data types because they're not compatible with each other. But what we can do is something called casting. All right, so let's take this, cut that out, and paste this down here. All right, so right now this number is trying to be, it says error type because it doesn't know which one it's trying to be. And this is where type inference can fail, because if we're giving two different types, it doesn't know which one to resolve to. So if we explicitly give this a type, let's say instead of letting it infer, we give this a type of integer. Okay, now it's saying can't convert value of type double to expected argument type int, because this is now explicitly an integer and we can't do this arithmetic between an int and a double. What we can do is so this is a double, we can cast this as an integer. And the way we do that is we type int, open our parentheses, and enclose 10 double inside the parentheses. All right, so the error goes away. You think, all right, problem solved. But then we run again, and we still get 0 here. Because, again, we're using integers. So what we can do is we can explicitly declare this as a double, and then remove this cast from 10 double, and instead cast favorite number as a double. So if we run that again, we will get the 0.2 that we expected. All right, and we can even, now that we've casted this as a double, this counts as a double. So we can actually remove this declaration and it will infer that we want a double. So if we option click on division again, we're going to see that now it is declared as double. We can also use this casting with strings. Let's say we have a string that we're going to call favorite message. We're going to set that equal to a string that says favorite number. All right, let's do our plus and our favorite number. And now since this is an integer, it's going to say that we can't use this to combine these two types. So we need to cast favorite number as a string. And once we do that, we get favorite number and the favorite number string. Now, as far as casting integers and doubles into strings, that's usually not a problem, because as long as they have a value, you will get a string result, because numbers can be converted into strings. That's not always the case going from strings to integers. If a string does contain a character that can become an integer or become a double, then you can cast that. But if you don't, you're going to get something called a nil. So let's take a look at that. So let's say, let number string equal 4. All right, so it's a string, but it has just one character in it, and it's the number 4. So if I now say let integer equal an int of number string, and I run that, we can see that this number string is a string that has the number 4, and now integer is just the number 4. It's an integer 4. All right, but what if this was 4D? All right, so I can't convert this into an integer. So when I run this now, I will see that my string still says 4D, but now I get this nil here. What a nil is an empty reference. So all of these names here for the variables and constants are just references to data that we're holding in memory. So if we try to convert 4D into an integer and it knows that it can't, there's no value that it can store. So it's an empty value or a nil value. So this is something that can cause issues, and there is a way to check for this and to give a default placeholder value, but we'll cover that in a later video. Alright, so we've seen how we can cast a type to another type, but when it comes to strings, Swift has something even more powerful that we can use, called string interpolation. Alright, so let's create a new string constant. We're going to call this user message. We're going to set this to a string value that says, welcome, Derek. Your favorite number is 8. Alright, so if we run this, we'll see we're going to get this string right back. Welcome, Derek. Your favorite number is 8. Alright, so what we can do is we can start replacing pieces of this, because we can imagine this as something in an app that, gets a user's name and gets their favorite number, and this is going to be unique to each user. So you can't hard code these values in here. Alright, welcome we could technically hard code, but maybe at some point we may want to have an array that has different greetings that we can cycle through. Alright, so for now, we're going to learn string interpolation. So inside of the string literal, so string literal is just this enclosed in double quotes, we're going to select welcome, and we're going to replace that with /, which for people using the US keyboard is the key just underneath the backspace key. And then we're going to open a parentheses, and then we're going to type in greeting. All right, so that's our string that we assigned before. And notice as we start typing, Xcode closes the parentheses for us. So we're going to select greeting. And now when we run this again, we're going to see that this still says welcome, but it says welcome because it's now getting this string interpolated form of greeting. All right, so let's do the same for name. All right, so we'll do the /, open parentheses, name. All right, so when we run that, we'll see again, this is going to change to Tim because we updated the value of name to Tim. Now the really awesome, powerful string interpolation comes in right now, because you saw before when we had this string favorite name, we had to cast this integer as a string. With string interpolation, we don't have to do that because Swift knows that we want a string because this is part of the string. So all we have to do is just do the same syntax from before, the / parentheses, and we're going to type in favorite number. And you're going to see we're going to get that favorite number back. All right, so we click this, we can see favorite, or you can't see because it's kind of off the screen, but if I pull this in, your favorite number is 2. Today we've covered some basic data types in Swift, how to declare and assign them as constants or variables, how to reassign variables, and how to use concatenation, string interpolation, and casting to combine data in meaningful ways. Go ahead and practice what we've covered in this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications so you stay updated. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video where we'll be exploring operators and control flow in Swift. Happy coding!